G'day my fellow media collectors, I'm Troy and today we're looking at
Travel through time, travel through space.
Batman Ninja vs. the Yakuza League is an animated superhero film that was produced by Warner Brothers Japan, DC Entertainment, Kamikaze Douga, YamatoWorks and Barnum Studios. And it was released in digital format on the 18th of March 2025. This movie starts merely one day after the events of the original 2018 movie Batman Ninja, despite the film's real-world release coming 7 years later. The Batman Ninja movies are a self-aware mashup meant to be enjoyed for the spectacle, and this movie is no different, with it leaning hard into the meta-aware humour, absurdity, fully embracing chaos, anime-influenced silliness and satire over traditional coherent storytelling. This Blu-ray has a runtime of 89 minutes. This Blu-ray version was released on the 15th of April 2025. And it was distributed by Warner Brothers Home Entertainment. Following their time-traveling adventure in The Batman Ninja, the Bat family returns to modern-day Gotham, only to find reality dramatically shifted. Japan has vanished from the map, replaced by a floating island named Hinomoto, hovering ominously above the city. From this bizarre floating realm, legions of Yakuza-style invaders descend upon Gotham. At the heart of the invasion is the Yakuza League, a twisted alternate version of the Justice League, ruled by corrupt and powerful figures that mirror familiar heroes. Batman, alongside the Bat family, must unravel the mystery of Hinomoto and face off against these perverted counterparts in a showdown to bring time and space back to normality. Now, the script for this film just catapults you, the audience, straight into the chaos almost immediately, with, of all things, a Yakuza hurricane just raining gangster invaders on Gotham from the inverted floating Japan above the city. It just sets the stage with zero delay, going hard into the unapologetic absurdity by balancing the over-the-top setups with a knowing sense of humour and this really self-aware tone. The one thing that stands out is that it gleefully embraces its own insanity by delivering a script that is relatively playful as it's sort of is purposeful, and it balances the over-the-top superhero silliness with moments of emotional clarity and cultural homage. Now, it doesn't shy away from, shall we say, some exposition or genre excess, that's for sure, and it does at times get a bit bogged down in those moments of exposition that sort of slow down the early momentum of the movie, but it ultimately crafts a narrative that feels both visually audacious and emotionally grounded by the last two acts of the film. Now, this is not for everyone, as the moments of, shall we say, emotional depth amid all of the absurdity going on may have some of the audience members feeling a little disjointed by the tonal shifts from the camp to sincerity that happens just throughout the whole movie. But if you take this film for what it is, you will realize that this script is not trying to be a serious Batman film, but one that deeply enjoys its own spirit of chaotic reinvention in this anime-inspired world. And look, for that, oh yeah, I'm going to give this a 24 out of 30. So this movie, like the first film, isn't an adaptation of any pre-existing Batman comic book storyline, and instead is an original anime project made in Japan with, of course, DC's blessing, as it draws from its DC Elseworlds traditions and keeps Batman and his fellow Justice League teammates' core traits intact. It is less of a straight comic book adaptation and more of a really creative remix, holding on to DC's core character identities and mythos while transforming them through this real bold anime-infused lens that really reinterprets and satirizes the American superhero tropes. Where this film, I mean, it truly shines in its visual presentation, with the animation swinging between the sleek 3D, painted 2D sketch work, and some bold Japanese motifs like their tattoos, the Yakuza robes, the stylized cutscenes. It's a constant visual feast that sometimes can be overwhelming, but it's definitely never boring.
This is so exciting!
And just like the first film, it uses those different visual styles to do some of the storytelling through some visual aspects and not necessarily spoken word. Like, say for instance, the Justice League members are drawn in this almost like wobbly line work to show that something's just not right with them and that they are kind of just out of sync with the rest of the universe and the world around them, which it changes to the same art style as Batman when they revert back to the versions of themselves that are their true characters.
You look so familiar.
Now for the cast, I'll just grab them from here. And as you can see, the cast list is, well, it's no one here from the first film, which is kind of a bit of a shame, but I'm sure there is a reason behind it. But let's just say it doesn't really hamper the movie in any real way, I suppose. But I suppose, look, you do slightly notice the difference in the voices of the cast. Not too much, but it is there. And look, from my research, it looks like a lot of these actors, just about all of them actually, are voice actors that are known for doing English dubs on anime movies. So it kind of makes sense to use them, shall we say, as they're kind of like industry standards, I suppose, for these type of movies. And look, I'm just going to hit the standouts. And of course, first off, let's start with Joe Daniels as Bruce Wayne / Batman. Now, Daniels leans into the gruffer, more exasperated performance than his predecessor, and as if he's almost painfully aware that he's stuck in this anime fever dream, and it's kind of like his irritation actually works, adding some unintentional comedy at times while delivering the type of Batman that we all know and love. Now, Aaron Campbell as Superman is voiced with this dramatic flair, balancing menace with a surprising charm to it. He sounds less like Clark Kent and more like a charismatic mob boss you can't help but respect and fear at the same time. Look, for me, John Swayze as Ra's al Ghul is, he's a standout in this movie, and he plays Ra's with this gleeful eccentricity that really suits this type of villain for this movie. Swayze is clearly having the time of his life and chewing up the scenery and leaning into this role with almost like this Shakespearean mustache twirling villain, making this probably the most memorable version of this character I've seen in a while. Now, Molly Cersei as Wonder Woman, she deserves a special mention as for her really engaging performance as probably the only helpful member of the Justice League in this movie for Batman, bringing a real calm and nurturing presence to the role. And look, let's not forget an emotional karaoke performance to boot. I mean, let's face it, that could have been laughable, but her delivery really sells it, and it's both funny and surprisingly heartfelt at the same time. Now, as far as the rest of the Justice League cast goes, you have Cyrus Rodas as Aquaman, Benjamin McLaughlin as Flash, and Annie Wilde as the Green Lantern. And look, they do get less screen time than their other actors, but look, they really lean into their villainous archetypes of some brash, cocky, and over the top villains in the real best anime way. I mean, all around the voice cast is great and they do a great job. And for that, look, I'm definitely going to give this an 18 out of 20. Okay, as we look at the disc and case, look at that cover. That cover is awesome. I remember seeing this on the shelf at my local JB Hi-Fi. I was like, oh, another Batman Ninja. And like it caught my attention straight away. So I gotta admit, that is good. Nice on the side. The back's not too bad. Let's have a look at the disc. Okay, disc a little bit of a letdown, but I don't know, that cover really gets me and I really like it. Overall, I mean, it's pretty standard, but I'll give props to that cover. I don't know, just me, I really like it. So for that, I'm actually going to do this a little better than the last one, and I'm going to go 8 out of 10. So there is just 2 special features on this Blu-ray, unfortunately, and they are bringing the League to Japan featurette and anime action choreographing the fights featurette. Now, it's a bit of a disappointment for me, that's for sure, as this is probably the really only letdown of this release, is the lack of the special features. And they're not as good, shall we say, as the previous movie's release, as they don't really get into too much. They don't really sink their teeth in too much, other than the designs of the new characters for this film and just explaining the fight scenes and how they're done. Not a real lot there, and they didn't really go for that long either. And I was kind of hoping to see a real bit more on the thought and the creation of the different members of the Justice League. But anyway, it is what it is, and this is all they served up to us. So the best I can do for this is probably 2 out of 10 maybe. As I bring up the Rotten Tomatoes scorecard, as you can see, the critics came in at, oh, there is no score. Oh, okay. Well, the audience score came in at 67%. So look, as far as the critics, look, there's only been 5 critic reviews, so it's just not enough for it to get a score. But I can tell you, they were all glowing reviews of the movie, and yet again, the audience reviews were the same, with almost down the middle, you had the people who get it and the people who don't. And as the ones that do, they love it to death, like me. But the people that don't, well, this goes back to my last video where I explained it's not meant to be a serious Batman movie like the others. This is meant, this is meant to be Batman coping in this anime world. It's meant to be silly, and of course it's meant to be off the wall. Of course, I get that some people don't like everything, that's true. But the majority of the reviews were from people who, I think they kind of really missed the point of the movie and kind of reviewed it as such. So look, anyway, because that's all I've got to work with, you know how it is. When we round it out, we're going to get a score of 7 out of 10. So look, for me, I was so excited to get this and watch this, because I really wanted to see what they were going to do with the Justice League. It really piqued my interest, to say the least. And let's say they did not disappoint at all. This movie is even more fun and more over the top anime fun than you can poke a 10-foot stick at. The concept of Japan goes missing and shows up above Gotham to rain down Yakuza warriors in what's called a Yakuza hurricane is just peak anime ridiculousness. And yet again, I love all the different art styles that they use in the ways to tell the story. They're really good at communicating with their visuals and not their words. It's just brilliant and just elevates this movie to just a whole nother level. And what had to be my favorite part of the movie that made me laugh so hard was when they really hit that nostalgia button for me, when Alfred did that little clip on their new vehicles, and it was just this massive throwback to the old 70s and 80s Voltron cartoons. That was so good. And let's not forget, the funniest moment was the
science ninja technique. vending machine.
Which I've got to say, I've got to admit it, I say that to myself every time I go past a vending machine now.
He has mental issues.
Anyway, this is such a great sequel that if you love that first one, you will definitely love this second one for sure. And for that, I'm going to give this a near perfect score again of, 19 out of 20. So for availability, I'm going to go at 2 out of 5, as this is pretty new and pretty common, so you shouldn't have too much trouble finding it anywhere. As far as collectability goes, this is definitely a 4 out of 5. This is a great must-have for your collection, whether you're an anime, Batman, DC fan, hell, just a fan of comic books in general. The average price you are looking at is somewhere between the $20 to $50 for Blu-ray, as it is still pretty new. Let's go to the scorecard and see how this one shapes up. Now, for the final score, we get a grand total of 77 out of 100. Not bad at all. I thought it would actually be a little higher, but the special features were probably the only letdown. But look, if you love that first movie, then this second one is definitely for you. And now, look, I'm not sure if they will ever do a third movie and make this a trilogy, but I tell you what, if they do,
Shut up and take my money.
next week on the show, we are going to look at what I picked up for the month of August 2025. So make sure you come back and check that out. Thanks for watching.